Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. Welcome to the greatest show on earth. I think I stole that from Ringling Brothers. My name is Jason Weiss. I am your host today for the Going Solo Network show, Ask Jason Weiss. I am both an attorney and a legal consultant. I also do some legal coaching. Nothing today is legal advice. You have not retained an attorney. I am not your attorney. No attorney-client privilege has been provided here today. Should you need legal advice, consult an attorney directly. Don't rely upon anything we say today as legal advice. And the reason I say that is, as promised, we have Dr. Joseph Bogart back in the studio today. And today, we are not talking about chiropractic. We are not talking about what to do after an accident. What we are talking about today is the do's and don'ts having to do with guns. Now, I know that guns are a very, very hot topic, sensitive topic, political topic, and people have beliefs all over, from everybody on the planet should have a gun, why would anybody not, to nobody on the planet should have a gun, and anybody that does should be put in prison. So we went from one extreme to the other extreme. And today we are not going to be talking about what your personal beliefs are with politics or who should own a gun, but in the reality is society is going to have guns, either police officers, soldiers, individuals, and it's probably advisable, I think that's a word, that if you ever do encounter a gun, from finding it on the ground, what to do, how to protect yourself, how to be safe with it. And that's what we have Joe Bogart. And I'm not going to call him Dr. Bogart today. Today we're going to call him Joe because he is not here as a chiropractor. But if you ever need chiropractic care and you're here in the South Florida area, go see Dr. Bogart. But we're going to talk to Joe today. So, Joe, you teach a gun safety class. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Tell us a little bit about how you trained for it, how you got, I guess, licensed or certified or given the green light to teach gun safety, where you taught. And I'm going to throw some questions out there as someone who took your gun safety class with my family, which two minor children, old enough to take the class, but minors otherwise, and my wife, and we all did a gun safety class. We do not own guns at this point in our life. May we in the future? We don't know. But tell us a little bit about how you became a gun safety instructor.
Okay. Well, thank you for the introduction, Jason. I have been shooting firearms since I was 8 years old as a kid at camp, where we shot 22 rifles. And then throughout my life became very interested in martial arts, self-defense. And for the last 15 years, I have been honored and privileged to have been trained by some of the top special forces operators of the IDF, or Israeli Defense Force military. These are people who are the best of the best at what they do. And I took a personal interest in that because, as a man of a household, meaning I'm the father and quote unquote, I consider myself the protector of my family, the protector of my children, I wanted to do everything that I could in an effort to be the best that I could be, to defend and protect them as much as I can. Nothing is foolproof, but I did feel that I sought out the best training from the best people. And because of that, I took a really strong interest into the firearm aspect of it. Even though we do edged weapons, we do hand-to-hand stuff, we do a lot of other things as well. And what I noticed is that even in our training, we had a lot of law enforcement people come and train with us. And, you would assume most law enforcement would be adequately trained. And oftentimes they weren't, not as trained as they could or should have been. And I'm not saying that on the whole of all of them, but some of the ones that came to us and trained with us. And so I started, deducing that, okay, well, these are trained law enforcement officers that aren't as experienced as they should be and don't have the weapon manipulation, meaning knowing how to deal with their firearm properly. most civilians then could benefit from it as well. And so, because they're obviously higher trained than most civilians, or at least should be. Um, and so civilians could really benefit from it. So I kind of took it upon myself to become certified through the NRA as an NRA pistol instructor. It's a very vigorous, I don't remember the exact number of hours, I want to say it was 16-hour course with some very vigorous testing. In fact, I was actually surprised at how challenging the written tests were. It wasn't just you take a course and everybody signs you off with a rubber stamp. It was actually challenging. There were people who failed. And I was not one of them, but there were people that failed because it was not, it was actually, it was good. It really tested their knowledge and the knowledge of the instructors. So I went through that certification to enable myself to certify people for concealed weapon permit. And unfortunately, there are many people, gun stores, ranges, places that do that. The way that they certify people is the absolute bare minimum. Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit about a gun. 1, 2, 3, you got to fire one shot, whatever it is, blah, 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 and I'll sign off on it. And they leave really having very minimal knowledge. So I said, you know what, let me take the experience and knowledge that I've gained from these special forces operators, put them into play for weapon manipulation and gun safety, because the methodology that we use is extremely safe. It is very, very rare, if ever, that anyone ever gets hurt in an accidental shooting, because if you follow the protocols the way they're designed, it's virtually impossible for anyone to get hurt. And so I
But
conveyed
let
that
me
over.
put on my lawyer hat. I'm not saying it is impossible. It's virtually
Correct.
impossible. But
Right. And anything.
anybody can do anything, and accidents happen, and all of that kind of stuff. So if you take his class, it's not a guarantee that you won't get hurt, but he's going to implement every safety feature known to man, woman, and everybody else on the planet to
Right.
make sure that you are safe from bringing dummy rounds in and real guns to taking you to the range and walking you through the actual shooting.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you know, especially when people get into guns and they start to have an understanding about them and a healthy respect for them, you tend to lose that sense of, let's treat this and respect this as a possibly lethal tool. And it really is a tool. I like to tell people, and I think that the weapon is really the mind of the person doing it. That is the weapon. The tool is just the way you're going to carry out that methodology. And so without my brain, no gun can function properly. And, guns don't just fire. Like, you can leave a gun sitting on a table. It's not going to shoot itself.
Right. I mean,
So, right. So someone has to do
well,
something.
think about that analogy without getting into politics, and we absolutely know your view that people should be allowed to use guns safely
Not
and be
everyone, but yes.
trained. But think about it this way: someone goes in and hits somebody in the head with a hammer. Are we going to outlaw hammers? No, because what you said, the brain told the hand to pick up the hammer and smash the person in the head. The hammer is a tool. Same thing with the gun. You see the gun, you put the bullet in, you pull it back, you fire. The gun is a tool. And I like that analogy. I like it a lot. And this is coming from someone who, prior to taking your gun class, was actually afraid of guns. And we talked about that. The
Yep.
closest I'd ever been was standing next to a police officer who had a gun in either his hand or her hand or the holster. And I had honestly a fear of the gun. And the first time I picked up one, which was fully unloaded, no magazine, no nothing, I was still scared.
Mhm.
Do I want to go out and have one in my home and shoot and all that? That's my personal decision. But at least now I know that it is not something I need to be scared of touching, because I know what to do to either move it, to put it away, to call a police officer, to call the owner, to do whatever. And it's funny because, my views are totally skewed. And I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to let you talk and chat about this. As part of the class, my family went to the gun range with Joe, and he showed us and he taught us, and we wore the goggles and the protective and all of this, and we shot into I guess one of the paper targets. That's the best way. And when we came home, we taped it to our door, coming and going. We have French doors, and one of them opens and the other one stays put, and it's taped there. And when we have friends or neighbors or people come, they're always like, oh, that's interesting. And I always kind of feel like I need to give a disclaimer. I'm like explaining myself. Oh yeah, we took a gun safety class as a family and we did it. And I always feel compelled to say, but we don't have guns in the home. And I feel compelled to say that because I'm not sure what that parent or what that neighbor or what that person would think about their child being in my home with a gun. And it's funny because we said that to a neighbor recently who actually asked my daughter to come and babysit. And when she was over at the house, she said something, and I'm like, we don't have guns here. And her response was, oh yeah, we have a gun at our house. I don't know where it is. My husband has it somewhere, and I'm sure it's in our bedroom, locked away. And I'm saying to myself, wait, hold on. Like, what? It's, and then she corrected herself and said, whatever, but I'm not going to get into that. So it's kind of weird because I'm still comfortable and I need a refresher, but I still think it's a very sensitive subject.
It's a very sensitive subject. Yeah, I mean, you left me on an open-ended situation, so I mean, I'll just tell you what I think.
Please go right ahead. I mean, analyze it. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's right. I mean, this is a dialogue here.
You're not wrong in any of the things that you said. And also, too, just as my disclaimer, nothing I'm giving is legal advice here. I'm not an attorney, nor do I pretend to be one.
But you did say at Holiday Inn Express last night. No. Right.
And I read a pamphlet. No, but the reality is that
read it on the internet.
Yeah, then it must be true.
Right.
The reality is this. You, along with most people who don't have experience with firearms, are often intimidated by firearms. It's a scary thing. We see shootings police shootings. We see shootings with violent criminals. We see shootings in movies. Hollywood has, done a great job of desensitizing us to mass violence. I mean, if you watch some of the movies that have come out over the years, and you'd be like, wow, oh, that was cool. Rambo did X, Y, and Z. And I don't want to use certain names, but like something like that. And you're like, wow, he killed 57 people in 2 minutes. And you're like, yeah, cool. That was awesome. That's awesome? Like that. Are you hearing what you're saying? Like, that's awesome. And so we
John Wick, come on. He's a stud.
100%. So the point is that is what some people get desensitized to and other people become more fearful from. And so what I tell people is if you have a healthy understanding of how a firearm works, how to treat, handle, and ensure that a firearm you are handling is in a safe condition at the time of handling it, there is virtually no risk of getting hurt. I can't say there's no risk, but there's virtually no risk if you follow certain safety protocols and steps. It pretty much ensures and overlaps on top of one another to ensure that the firearm you're managing is safe to handle. And that if it were to discharge, which it shouldn't, but if it did, nothing would happen. And so it would be completely safe. But most people go, oh my God, what do I do with this? There's something on the table. I don't know, don't touch it. Leave it alone. It's no different than a hammer. And it's funny that the analogy you gave with a hammer, statistically speaking, more people die in the United States from hammers than they do from rifles. I'm not kidding you. There are people that get killed with hammers and kitchenware, knives, steak knives, more than rifles. And so, when you say, and I'm not getting into the politics of it, but people have this fear of, oh my God, they're so dangerous. I can make a hammer really dangerous. I can make my car really dangerous. I can make a chair really dangerous and bash you over the skull with it. And so then you say, well, we got to ban chairs. We should nail them to the ground. We should make it more hard to get a hold of chairs. No, what we should do is we should make sure that people are screened properly, don't have access to them who have mental issues. The problem is doing that. And so it becomes a very heatable debate. There's a lot of politics involved. There's Second Amendment things involved, which we're not really going to get into. But there's a very weighted, on both sides that can really, and there's validation because I try to be very objective and I understand the argument of both sides. And so it becomes a very strong debate and both sides have merit. It is what it is. So
I think just having the safety, having the knowledge, having a comfort, I'm all for that. Look, you don't want to drive and you don't want to own a car, but you should still get a driver's license so that you know how to drive. You don't want to, do CPR on somebody, but there's no harm in going and getting certified in CPR. So it's knowledge. It allows. And it's funny because ever since I took the course with you and did whatever in my family, you've kind of screwed up movies for me in an extent, because when I see the movie or the TV show and how they're holding the gun, I'm saying to myself, oh, no, that's BS, or, oh, wow, that person has it. Would you explain to our listeners who are as novice as I was, and now I'm one step above that, what I'm talking about with when I'm watching the movie, how they hold the gun? What the heck am I talking about?
So, all right. So what you're explaining or discussing is weapon manipulation, how you handle and manipulate your weapon. The same way, how do you drive a car? Some people shift gears this way, some people shift it hard, some people use the top of it, some people some people drive with their hand on top, some people drive at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. There's different ways of doing things, and most professional operators, whether they're military or law enforcement or security, are trained under certain protocols to have the most safe methodology. And when you see people in movies or TV shows, whether they're law enforcement or military, and they're not abiding by what are considered industry standards for safety, you look at that after a while and you're like, oh God, this is so fake. This guy is like, he's totally putting his partner at risk, or, he's totally doing that wrong, or man, he did his magazine change like an idiot, or he's holding the firearm incorrectly, and he will create a jam of his firearm based on how he's holding it. And I see it all the time, and it's unfortunately very frustrating because it almost ruins the realisticness, because I know when I watch a military movie, military trains certain ways and they would never use their firearms in that manner. And you're like, this is so not real. Like, it's almost killing it for me. And now I'm watching a movie again versus being
Right.
in it and engrossed in it. So yeah, that happens to me all the time
Oh,
too.
let me look in the barrel. Is there something there? And they're
Yeah.
stuck, and
Yeah,
with it in, or right, the one eye with it out there, and all of that.
Yeah.
It's just
It's laughable. It's actually laughable.
It is.
And again, at the end of the day, these are actors who their job is not to be a firearm expert. Their job is to act, and they are assuming a role of a law enforcement officer, or the role of a military personnel, or the role of, a bad guy, or a home, someone in their home. They're portraying a role and aren't trained on that. Now, it's interesting you brought up John Wick.
Well, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to get into the movies when we're going to take a break in 3 or 4 minutes, and I want to go into that.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll disrupt our flow a little bit, because there's one question I want to ask you that we can get done, and then we'll take a break in 3 or 4 minutes. So the question I have is, someone owns a gun. Someone also has ammunition. How would you recommend storing each of those together, separately? What would you say for ideal safety?
Okay, so for ideal safety, this is not a legal recommendation.
Just safety.
So according to some of the rules of gun safety, you are supposed to store unloaded firearms. Okay. The problem with storing an unloaded firearm is that the time that it takes to then load your firearm could be the difference between life and death. So a lot of people like to store loaded firearms. And by storing, I mean either in a locked box, in a safe, in a biometric safe, a biometric lock where you use your fingerprint, or you have a combination, or a padlock, or a key lock, some method of keeping it particularly out of the hands of inexperienced shooters. And so the ideal rule is to keep ammunition outside of or away from the actual firearm, possibly in a different location. If you have a gun in a safe and ammunition in another room or another locked area, the problem is someone broke in your house and you needed a defensive situation to defend yourself. Hold on, let me go get my gun. Okay, hold on, let me go get my ammunition. Okay, let me put it all together. Seconds become lives. You're going to waste time.
Right.
So a lot of people like to store a loaded firearm, or perhaps, and some people like to store it in what's considered condition 3, which means, like, if it's a semi-automatic pistol where there's a loaded magazine, it's loaded, but there isn't one chambered in the chamber. It's not in the barrel yet. And so if that's that way, then that gun can't be fired until it is made operable by racking, or pulling back the slide to get around into the chamber. So some people like to carry it that way, which is technically loaded but very safe if someone was to grab it or get a hold of it. But again, proper storage. It should be locked away in a safe place. It should not be kept in a place where people who have access to it shouldn't have access to it. And if they do, it should be separate from ammunition. So it should be
Right.
unloaded.
And it's kind of like, in the state of Florida, there's rules having to do with, just for example, where you open a gate towards a pool so that a child under a certain height or a certain age can't open it. However, if you have somebody who is physically disabled and using a wheelchair or a mobility device, that individual can't reach that high. So the question becomes, is it access that's more important? Is it safety that's more important? And the same thing with the gun. If you store your gun completely and totally unloaded in a safe and you keep the ammunition in another room and somebody comes into your house or does something and you want to protect yourself, it's going to take you 5 minutes to get all your stuff together, as opposed to maybe not putting it under your pillow and grabbing it and going like this, but at least a one-stop shop. Boom, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, codes in, got the gun, ready to go. So again, there's a conflict as to what is the safest for society. Keep them separate, or everybody gets trained, or we ban bad guys and burglars, and then we don't have to worry. Safest for the protection of your home, probably not keeping it under your pillow, but keeping it together in a lockbox. So what we're going to do is this. We're about 20 minutes in. We're going to take a 2 or 3 minute break to thank our sponsors, let them go ahead and do that. And when we come back, we're going to talk about John Wick, movies, and all that fun stuff. So again, this is Joe Bogart, and you can email him at Chiro Gator1, CHIROGATOR, the number 1 at yahoo.com for questions about gun safety, taking a class, getting certified, just pardon my language, shooting the crap, and seeing what's going on. So let's break for a quick commercial, and we'll be back and we'll talk about John Wick and movies. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you in 2 or 3 minutes.
Hello.
We are back. Hello, everybody. We are back with Joe Bogart. We're talking about gun safety today. Although I am an attorney, I am not giving any legal advice. You have not retained me today. Nobody has retained me. If you need legal advice, consult an attorney directly. Do not take anything on this show that we're talking about as legal advice in any respect, even though Joe is not an attorney. Nothing he is giving is legal advice. And we are just talking generally about gun safety. Now, before we went ahead and broke, I interrupted Joe. I wouldn't let him get into the topic of John Wick. But now we're going to talk about a movie that I like, top 20, 25 movies in my repertoire, John Wick. So let's talk about it. You want to talk about Keanu Reeves as portraying John Wick and his training? You want to talk about the movie itself? Go ahead. The floor is yours, Joe.
Okay, well, let's go back after this conversation and talk a little bit about what you were saying prior to the break as far as I forgot what you were saying exactly, but there was some.
Where storing the gun as opposed to the
Yeah,
ammunition.
yeah.
Let's
So,
start there. Go ahead.
okay, all right, let me start there and then we'll get into the John Wick.
Okay.
So, without legally advising people, the purpose
No
of.
legal advice being given here. Go ahead.
So let's understand the purpose of a firearm. The purpose of a firearm is to kill things. It is what it is. It's to throw a piece of metal, usually lead or copper or some other thing, at a very high rate of speed at a person or thing in an effort to do damage. That is the purpose of a gun. So, when I hear people say things like, oh, this gun can kill lots of people, the inventor should be applauded. That was the design purpose of it. No one designs guns to say, like, this is going to tickle your friends. This is going to make everybody feel really good. It's not a feel-good device. It's designed to do the intention of either harming or killing someone. The purpose of it is to do that, hopefully being used in a defensive purpose, unless it's a military, operation, in which they have to do it to kill a bad guy or whatever it is. I mean, no one in the military says, I want to go in there and really start killing people. They're doing it because they want to defend our country, or they need to protect our country, or do missions in an effort to better the country that they're representing, or, that they're from. But inevitably, it is designed to do damage. That is the purpose of a firearm. So people say, oh, that's a very scary firearm, and that's a very dangerous firearm. If it does its job properly, that's what it's designed for, okay? Having a healthy respect and a healthy knowledge of how that operates and does such business makes it a lot less scary.
Plus, if you don't have a key, you could use the gun to shoot the lock. No, I'm just playing.
No. But I mean, listen, the reality is a gun is no different than any other tool. It's a tool that throws metal. I mean, you could say, well, a nail gun doesn't kill people the same way, but a nail gun shoots nails. Mm-hmm. Its job is to shoot nails into pieces of wood.
I think either Die Hard or Lethal Weapon. A nail gun was used to kill people.
Yeah. And so my point is that anything can be used properly or improperly to do something it was designed or not designed to do. But the reality is a gun was designed to kill people or damage them bodily.
And go back to the hammer. The hammer was used to nail things together, put things together, build things. But I guarantee somebody somewhere has been killed with a hammer, either the end or the head, or they hit somebody by accident, or so just like you said, a hammer can be a dangerous instrument, just like a firearm.
Absolutely. And so if the purpose of a firearm is to create bodily harm and or death as far as lethal force in its design, and you have a firearm in your household in an effort to defend and protect yourself with such means, it would make sense then to store it, hopefully in a safe fashion, but easily accessible and readily available to do the purpose of the tool. It's kind of like saying, listen, I got a car, it's really great, but I don't keep it full of gasoline, and I have to go to the gas station and go get gas. If I ever need a car, I want to be able to drive. And you're like, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why don't you keep gas in the car and only turn it on when you need it? Right. And that's kind of how I feel about firearms. Again, right. As long
as I got a car and I don't keep air in the tires, and when I want to go ahead and drive it, I fill it up.
Right.
And that way my son can't drive it.
And so, right. And so while I understand the rationale, it kind of defeats the purpose of having the car, the same way it kind of defeats the purpose of being able to defend yourself with a said firearm. Now,
so in the scenario that I said, let's just say it's you, no gas or no air in the tires, because I don't want my son to drive it. But if I were to take the key to the car and lock it in a safe and don't give him the combination, or hide it in my bedroom somewhere where he would never go find it, or store it in my next door neighbor's house, I mean, that prevents him from getting there. But if he does find the key, he can go in there and push the button and start it up. So again, I don't know if I don't think anybody on the planet can ever come up with a right or wrong. Do you store it loaded? Do you store it here? Do you do it? But look, be smart, be safe. Don't leave it on your kitchen counter when you have little kids running around your house.
Correct.
When you have neighbors going around, you got to be smart. And that's with anything. I mean, look, you want to go ahead and turbocharge your car so it's faster. Okay, but do you really need that while you're bumper to bumper traffic in Miami-Dade County? Probably not.
Right. But a person would have a right to have that if they wanted to, and they may use it on occasion when they're on an open road where there's no one, or they could take it to a track, and do it there. But, so, storing a firearm properly and safely, usually, so like when let's say there's two adults in a home, no children. Most adults know, okay, I know where my wife keeps her firearm, or I know where my husband keeps his firearm, and I know the condition that it's in, and I know if it's loaded or not loaded, or what I need to do to make it operable. I know it's either locked or not locked. It's hidden under a mattress, under a pillow, up on a shelf, whatever, okay? And so usually you don't have the concern of one spouse shooting themselves or someone else. Usually the concern involves children or minors or people who may get it and go, ooh, what is this? I found this. Oh my God, my daddy told me never to touch this. He's not home. Let me play with it, and accidents happen. And so the main way that I see around that, and statistically proven to get around that, is to adequately and properly teach your children how to manage and respectfully handle a firearm. And once they have the understanding of it, first of all, the excitement and the buzz of going, ooh, he's not home. Let me play with this shiny object or whatever it is. It's more like, I've already shot that at a range. I know how it works. I'm really not that interested in it. And so they really will have a lot less of a need. Now, they may still want to do it. I'm not saying that they won't, but the need goes away. It's not a forbidden thing. Whatever you do, don't drink alcohol. Ooh, I'm going to taste it. I want to see what it's like. Ooh, don't touch my firearm. Ooh, he's not here. I'm going to play with it. I want to show my friend. And that is actually where the majority of childhood accidents happen. It's not the child that lives in the home. It's the friend of a child that comes to the home that the child says, do you want to see my dad's gun? I know how to handle it properly. Do you want to handle it? And the other kid doesn't know how to handle it properly, and an accident happens. And that's actually statistically where the majority of accidents happen. Is it's not the child that lives in the home. It's when there's a child that visits and that kid wants to show him, you want to see my dad's gun? It's really cool. That's why those kids shouldn't have access to them. Because of that reason, even if they have a healthy respect and understanding of how it works, you tell your kid, listen, when Johnny comes over here, I don't want you showing Johnny any of my firearms. They are locked away on purpose, and you don't have the combination for that reason. Okay, Dad, and I respect that. This is for us. This is something that, you and I will do, and I've taught you properly, but we don't know what his experience with firearms is, and I don't want you or him to get hurt. And so that should be expressed implicitly. And again, access should not be granted to those firearms. There are people who, unfortunately, do not treat them as safe. They go, well, if I have to put it in a locked safe and I ain't going to get to it, someone breaks my house. I get that. And if you are going to store it that way, which is not recommended, the people around you should know how to work that thing and what to do with it if it ever comes into their hands or they have to use it in a forced situation. So,
but you can extend that to anything. My daughter is 12 years old. I allow her to watch PG-13 movies. If she has another, or sometimes even an R-rated movie, depending on why it's R-rated.
Right.
If she has a friend over and her friend is 12 or 13 like her, and, hey, Dad, can I watch, the R-rated movie like John Wick, let's just say. Why is John Wick rated R? Because of the guns and the violence and all this and all that. I don't have a problem with my daughter watching that. But I don't think it's my decision to expose somebody else's child who's 12 years old that shouldn't see it. So that might be a text to that friend's mom or dad or whatever. Hey, they want to watch John Wick. Are you okay with that? Oh, yeah, sure. She's seen it 100 times. Or no, we don't watch that type in our house. So it's respect. And I think that's huge. It's respect for society. It's respect for the firearm. It's respect for your surroundings. It's all about respect.
Right. It's a healthy respect and an acknowledgement of the safety and the actual ability of such tool to do serious bodily damage or death. I mean, it is a lethal tool. I told my kids, because we have firearms in the house, and I said, listen, when your friends come over, they are stowed and locked away in places where, you won't find them. And if you did, they're locked in a place where you can't get to them. But you don't need to tell them. So, hey, guess what? My dad's got guns in the house. Are you okay with that? Why bring attention to something? And I'm not saying you're hiding it. If someone asks you, do you have it? I'm not going to lie and say, no, I don't. But it shouldn't come up. It's you guys are playing, doing stuff. Why do you even need to even know that? And it's not something someone needs to know because it may make them uncomfortable. Oh, God, there's guns. I don't want my kid going there. If they're properly stored, it shouldn't matter. Just like I have a properly stored chainsaw in my garage. I can kill you with a chainsaw. Well, he's got chainsaws. My God, this guy's a lunatic. Not really. They're in a garage. They don't have access. My kids don't have access to my chainsaw, just like they don't have access to a firearm. So it should be safely kept. So getting around or getting back to the conversation about John Wick and watching that as a movie, again, movies and Hollywood, the hypocrisy of it drives me crazy. We're not going to talk about politics, but the hypocrisy is we're going to make movies where we're going to shoot things up and shoot thousands and thousands of rounds and kill hundreds and hundreds of people. And I think firearms should be banned. It's like, well, then stop glorifying it if you feel that way. Maybe make it appear more sensitive, have more respect for it in a movie, and show that it should really only be used in a defensive situation, as a last minute situation, not gloriously, gratuitously killing, hundreds of people or whatever it is in a movie.
Or only in the Matrix, but that's okay. That's another story for another day.
Their whole point is this is not real. It's a movie. It's fake. The problem is, and I do believe this particularly with young minds, is that when you see a movie and you get emotionally involved in a movie, your brain has a very hard time distinguishing reality from a movie, which is why horror movies are so scary. You're sitting in a movie there, there is no one in there with an axe ready to chop your head off, but it's scary. Your heart rate will go up, your adrenaline levels will release, your body gets scared as if you're in the movie. The same way you're in the movie, if you're shooting, man, that looks cool. I want to do that. I want to be cool like that. I want people to respect me. I want people to have a fear of me, and I want to be able to, yeah, exactly. And so, it's hard for developing minds. The human brain isn't fully developed till about the age of 27. You've got young people, whether it's R-rated 17, 18, watching a movie where they don't have the full development to understand the pure consequence nature of taking someone's life or bodily injuring them in a way that could permanently affect the rest of their life. People don't think about that. You go, man, you're in it. Oh my God, I want to be like John. Like, he's a super badass. I want to be like this guy. Did you see the way he took on 20 guys all by himself? I mean, woo, I want to be like that. Again, highly unrealistic, highly unlikely, but there's that level. But when you watch someone, for instance, like Keanu Reeves, you mentioned him in the movie, he as a human, not as an actor, just as a civilian, has been significantly trained by very, very qualified firearms instructors. When you watch him shoot or handle and manipulate the weapons that he does in the movies, he does it in a proper and professional way. He does it by the book. He does it correctly. And so when you watch it, you're like, he knows what he's doing. Like, you can watch, again, it's fake. I know it's fake. But the way he manages it, handles it, does things with it, etc., you're like, he knows what he's doing. This guy has a proper knowledge of firearm functionality, weapon manipulation, magazine changing, jams, how he handles it. He has very good. And if you ever watch him, there's actually quite a few YouTube videos of him doing what's called like a 3-gun competition or other things where they shoot different weapons on targets for time. He's excellent at it. I mean, he's really, really good. And we're talking well beyond the average civilian, let alone well beyond the average trained individual. He's good. So when he does stuff in a movie and you watch him, you're like, that's accurate. That's very good. He did that properly. He did that correctly. He did that safely. Even though he's running around killing people, but what he did was safely managed. Keep it all within reason. It's a movie, but you watch that and you're like, that's impressive. Someone like me is impressed by that. Other people who know what they're doing, law enforcement, military, or other operators, will go, "I did a good job. That was awesome." And sometimes we'll break it down in slow motion. You're like, you see this scene? That was verbatim. That was perfect. That was excellent. He did that exceptionally smooth. Wow. And you're watching, you're like, yeah, nicely done. Good job, Keanu Reeves. You actually demonstrated, not only are you a fantastic actor and probably a great person, even though I don't know him, he is an adequately trained individual, which, most people, when they have the gun debate, and again, we're not going to, the one thing that tends to come up that I hear a lot from people who are either anti-gun or even some people that are really for guns is that people should be adequately and properly trained if they're going to own one. And I don't think that that's a bad idea. I think that's a great idea.
But same thing with a car. Here in the state of Florida, you must have your learner's permit for a full year before you are allowed to get your driver's license. So you get a learner's permit after you're 15. You must have it for a full year. You wait till you're 15 and a half, you can't get your driver's license till you're 16 and a half. You get it at 15 in a day, you can get it at 16 in a day.
Correct. The problem
is adequately trained to drive a car. Now, I'm not saying it's a perfect system, but the concept, we agree, is right.
Right. The issue, okay, so what defines adequately trained? My mom taught me. What if your mom's a horrible driver? She never uses her directional. She never stops at stop signs. She rolls through them or whatever it is. And she's the one teaching you. You may learn bad habits. You may learn bad driving skills. She tells you never look in your mirrors. Oh, I never really thought about it. I never mentioned it.
Chances are you won't pass the test. Chances.
Chances
You
are.
might be able to, but chances are you won't.
So there are driver courses and there are driver things that people can do. Unfortunately, they're expensive. They're not, for people who are low income and don't have the ability to afford that, it may be a problem to have access to that. But a standardized, and they're standard. A lot of these companies, I don't want to mention names, but they're standardized in their methodology of teaching. It would be great if we could devise a standardized method of teaching. Now, the NRA, which many people don't like for whatever reason for their lobbying efforts, have standardized methodology of teaching firearm safety. There are standards, there are protocols, there are lists of things you need to go through in order to do that, so that every NRA instructor, if they're following the guidelines, teaches A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, all the way down, so that the person taking the course gets a standardized methodology. Now, some people have a better way of explaining it. I can see two people. One guy can explain it so that a dummy can understand. The other can understand it so that only people who have firearm experience can understand it. That depends on the breakdown, like anything else, of the instructor or the quality and the training of the instructor. I like to think of myself beyond firearms as a very good teacher and instructor. I enjoy teaching people things. I enjoy teaching people about their bodies. I enjoy teaching people about proper eating and health and nutrition. I enjoy teaching people about firearms. And because of my passion of teaching, not to toot my own horn, but I think I'm better at teaching than, say, someone who's just good at what they do, but can't convey that information to someone in a way that the other person can understand. I could look at someone and understand, and look at them and take cues and know this guy has it. This guy has no idea what I'm talking about. That guy's got it. That guy doesn't. I got to dumb it down for that guy and kind of speed it up for that guy because he's getting bored and that guy's losing me here. And being able to do that, that's when good instructors are really adequate at conveying good teaching to students so that everyone in the room can get it. And again, I make my classes usually 5 or 6 people at the most so that I can individually watch and look and see that guy's got it, that guy doesn't have it. You seem to have a question, you're bored out of your mind. And then know how to gauge things based on what's going on with it. And okay, you know what? You say you got it? Show me. Oh, I can't do it when you put me under pressure. Well, if someone's breaking in your home, there's going to be a level of pressure there. You should be adequately able to do it. So you may be able to do it textbook, but not physically. Let's work on that. Or, I know how to do it, but I can't explain it. Let's work on that. Let's make it so you can explain it. That you can tell someone how to do it. Again, they don't have to become a firearm instructor, but they should be able to. If you can explain it, you own it. And that's the expression I was taught. If you can teach it or explain it, you own it. If you can just do it, but not explain why, you don't really have the full grasp. And I want my students to know that. And I don't feel comfortable signing off on them until they've demonstrated it, can demonstrate it back and explain it back to me rather than go, oh, I got it. Okay, explain it. Okay. You said you had it. I see nodding. You get it? Show me. So, and again, that boils down to everything. That goes with sports. That goes with personal training. That goes with chiropractic. That goes with, firearms. That goes with law. That goes with everything. So that's to me very important, and I strive to convey what was conveyed to me by people that I admire and have the utmost respect for in their level of training and their level of skill, because I'm telling you, I've seen these guys in action doing what they do, and it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing how fast, how smooth, how precise, how it's like me just putting my finger in my ear. I don't ever have to think oh, is my ear over here? I just go boom, right there. They just do it you're like, wow, that was amazing. Holy cow. They don't mess up and they don't go, here. They just go literally boom, right in their ear. And you're like, damn, that was fast. That was smooth. That was amazing. And, working with them over and over again, years and years and years on end, you develop that level of skill. And so I try to share that with my students and people, because if everybody had that level of safety, security, and training, the world would be a better and safer place, particularly when it comes to firearms. Because, again, it is a tool designed to damage or hurt or kill people. It's purpose. And when people get mad about well, this just kills too many people, it was done that way intentionally. Unfortunately, it was used by a person incorrectly. But if used, let's use the example. And I I'm trying not to get too heated here, but let's say I have an AR-15, okay, which has a high capacity magazine, and 10 people try to home invade me, and I have to shoot each one multiple times, 3 per person if I have a 30-round magazine. And if you watch the average shooting, it takes multiple shots to neutralize or stop an assailant. Am I really outnumbered, or am I outnumbering them? Not really. There's a lot of them. What if it's 5 guys and I have to shoot each one 6 times? And I miss because I'm nervous and I only get 1 out of 6 bullets into each guy, and they're still coming at me with knives or guns or whatever it is. And you go, yeah, maybe that's not too bad. But in a situation like that, it's like, that's a brilliant. Oh, it's great that you have access to that tool because that could do a lot of damage in a short period of time. That's fantastic because it's used in a defensive situation. If
right. I mean, for zombie apocalypse, we all have to go ahead and have it.
Right.
You know, I watched Army of the Dead last night again. So, I mean, zombie apocalypse. We're running out of time. So there was one point that I wanted to get to, and it was when I watch a lot of police TV dramas and movies and all of that. And one of the things that I've now pay attention to after taking your class is the placement of the pointer finger on a, I guess I don't want to say a Glock, but on a handheld gun. Or rifle. For anybody that doesn't want TV shows to be ruined, sign off right now, say goodbye. But for anybody that wants to know the proper placement, Joe, proper placement on the trigger, and they're walking and they're zooming and they're close to their face. No,
never.
Proper placement, nowhere near the trigger. Where should your pointer finger be?
Your pointer finger should always be straight, and it should be on either what's called the slide or the trigger guard, which is the piece that goes around the trigger, keeping it from getting bumped. Your finger should never be bent and on the trigger until the very moment you feel that it is proper and safe to take a shot. That is the only time your finger should touch the trigger. It should never touch the trigger prior to that. So I think there's someone in my home. I don't walk around with my finger on the trigger. I walk around with my finger off the trigger because let's say something pops out and boom, oh shit, that was my kid, that was my dog, that was my whatever it is. If my finger's off the trigger, there's a process. There's a mental process that has to happen where I have to go, that's my daughter, I'm not going to shoot. Or let's say I'm walking and all of a sudden I trip, boom, and my finger hits the trigger and it goes off into my dog or a child or another person that it shouldn't. That's a problem. Or let's say I'm walking around and my wife comes out of the bathroom and taps me, and I jerk and my finger pulls the trigger. That finger should never be on the trigger until the very moment you feel that it is proper and safe to take a shot. And up until that very millisecond, your finger should not ever touch a trigger. It is one of the fundamental rules of gun safety. So when you see people in a movie, let's say this is a gun and they're walking around with it like this, proper. You see them walking around with their finger on their trigger like this, you go, that's not realistic. That's not smart. That guy's an idiot. You know, that guy's going to cause a problem because when it's partying, he goes, hey, he's over here. Oh, and shoots whatever, even if it's just a wall. You just put a hole in a wall. You discharged a firearm. That's a problem.
Oh, yeah. So we probably got about 30 seconds left. Yeah. We like Keanu Reeves for multiple reasons, but he does it right. Any other actor or actress that just pops off the top of your head that does it right?
It's on a case-by-case basis because I've seen people do things right in some scenes and wrong in others. I've seen them hold it wrong. I've seen them load it wrong. I've seen them rack it wrong. I've seen them.
So real quick, Fauda, good or bad when it comes to that?
Fabulous.
Matrix.
Pretty good. I have to see it again because it's been quite a few years, but what I recall, very good.
John Wick, we talked about John Wick does it right. Anybody else at the...
John Wick does it very well. Some of the other actors in the movie.
Understood.
But from what I recall, I believe they all had adequate training on set to do what they need to do properly.
All right, and one more question. What are you currently watching on Netflix, and are you enjoying it?
I just finished Ozark, which I really enjoyed. I am currently watching The Boys on Amazon Prime, not on Netflix. I'm a few episodes into that, and that's very interesting and gratuitously violent. If you're interested in very gory scenes and very well done gory scenes, that's a pretty good show for you. If you don't like blood and guts places, don't watch it. Not gonna like it.
If you don't like blood and guts places, you shouldn't be watching this show today. We talked about gun safety, the do's and don'ts. Joe, thank you so much. If anybody is interested in some gun safety techniques, you can email Joe at chirogator1 at yahoo.com. And for those of you like me that are terrible at spelling, CHIROGATOR, the number 1 at yahoo.com. Go Gators, go Joe. Thank you so much for your time today. And to everybody out there, stay safe, stay well, and tune in 2 weeks so we can do it again. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.